Hi, Dustin Lee here from RetroSupply, and today I'm going to show you how to install Photoshop brushes if you don't know how to do that, and then I'm going to show you how to use Photoshop brushes to add a distressed, subtle, textured look to your work. And as you can see, I've made this really simple piece of artwork that just says oil. I want to create kind of this grungy oil type, oil package retro effect. So the first thing you're going to need is you're going to need some brushes. Now there's all sorts of free brushes online. You can literally just Google free Photoshop brushes and you'll find all sorts of resources. But I have a great pack from RetroSupply that I'm going to use, and that is called the Standard Issue Subtle Brush Kit. It comes with a ton of different brushes, you know, some just subtle grunge ones, and then it even comes with some edge ones so you can actually add some cool edge effects to your work. So, and it actually comes with a guide too. But anyways, so I'm going to get this and I'm going to download the pack, which I've already done. And in the pack, there's multiple different packs of different kinds of brushes in here. Large ones, small ones, but I'm just going to install the 23 standard issue brushes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Photoshop. I'm going to go to Edit. I'm going to go to Presets, Preset Manager, and as you can see it says Preset Type Brushes, and I'm going to click Load, and then I'm going to navigate to these brushes, and you will see an actual brush file or an ABR file, and I'm just going to select that, click Open, and magically they have all been added down here. You can actually see if you hover over them that it says Subtle Brush number 2, Subtle Brush number 3, so I'm going to say Done. And now you have those brushes loaded. I can select my brush here, and then I can actually drop down this little navigation or this little drop down box here, and I can select a brush. So that's how you install your Photoshop brushes. So now let's get to adding some textures to our work right here. Now, there's something that a lot of people don't do, and I think it's something they're really missing out on that can really add a new level to your texture work. And that's to not just get brushes and start adding the texture, but actually consider how you build your work out before you do it, because you can make the brushes reveal layers in unique ways if you layer everything right. So in this example of this oil typography, first I have my base, and at the bottom of it is a slight off-white color because I want this to look a little bit aged. So anywhere where the black is showing through, you know, because maybe the ink is showing through and aged, I want to be able to see that off-white paper color. And I've set my dusty black color here to multiply, so it's kind of, you know, going through kind of like almost like an ink that you can see through. So that's my base layer, and then I have my oil typography layer, and I've turned that into 2 layers as well. So I have the white layer on the bottom, and then I have this layer with an area taken out of it on the top. So the bottom line in here is that I've broken this up so you can see, so you can add texture to each layer, and in that way we're expose all these different layers. You get a much richer and more complex and great looking texture effect when you do that, as opposed to just having one flat layer that you're adding texture to. So let's get started. So I got my brush here, and I'm going to select, the first brush is a great brush, so I'm going to use that, Subtle Brush number 1. And I'm going to go to this top oil front layer, and we need to rasterize this. So rasterize type, and I'll rasterize this type while I'm at it. Okay. So now I'm going to make sure that my opacity and my flow is at 100%, and you definitely want to play with these. You can get all sorts of different effects by adjusting the opacity and flow, but I'm going to keep them at 100% for now and just see what happens. So I'm going to zoom in and get ready to add the textures here, and I'm going to create a clipping mask on top of this, because what I want to do is I want to remove this ink and expose the ink below it. So all I have to do is go down here, click Add Layer Mask, and then just start clicking. And as you can see, what it's doing is it's exposing that layer below. And I'm just slowly building that up. And then I can pick a different one of these subtle brushes. So maybe I'll get one that has a little more intense streak in it. Nice. Do that there. And then I'm going to do the same thing to this layer of white on the back, because the white is going to be distressed too. It's a layer of ink, you know, below the red. So I'm going to add another layer mask. And I'm going to do the same thing. And as you can see, this one's affecting the layer below it. I'll pick another one. Really, all these work really well, so you can just pick random ones and just see what happens. And I'm going to be a little more aggressive on this white layer below because you can't see all of it, so you might as well have some fun with it. Nice, that looks pretty cool. Okay, so now that we have that done, this is looking pretty awesome as it is. Maybe I'll add one more like here in the red. As you can see, you can go pretty crazy on this. Okay, so now let's go to the base layer. So for the base, I'm going to distress the black layer, and I want to be a little more subtle with that. So first I'm going to pick a more subtle brush. So I'll pick that first one I had, which was subtle brush number 1. And then I'm going to lower the opacity, and we'll start at 50% and see what happens. And I'm going to lower the flow to around, we'll try 50% on that too. We'll see what happens. And I'm going to back up a little bit here so I can see more of what's going on. And here's a cool little trick. So you can go into the brush here, and I want this to rotate every time I click it. So I'm going to go to Shape Dynamic, and I'm going to do Angle Jitter. And what that's going to do is just by adjusting that, that's going to rotate the brush a little bit every time I click. So it doesn't look, you know, like it's creating the same texture every time I click. So I got the Angle Jitter changed. And I'm going to start clicking. Now, watch what happens. I don't know if you can see this because it's kind of hard to see the brush, but it's going to change angles each time I click. See how it changed? And I'm just clicking through the black areas, just building this up. And by the way, on a good brush set like this one, there's actually really large brushes too. So you can download the super large brushes, and you could literally do this whole sheet with just one click if you wanted. But I kind of have fun doing it with the smaller ones and just building it up. So that's a pretty good subtle build, but I want to get a little more intense now. So I'm going to pick another brush. No, maybe more so. I'm going to do this one. And I'm going to increase the opacity to go with, can't get 75, 74. And I'll increase the flow a little bit too. And as you can see, that's much more visible. I'm going to make sure this is rotating again. So I'm going to click on the Shape Dynamics, Angle Jitter, bring it up to like 36. As you can see, this is starting to look like a really old, like, I don't even know, like some like old oil box or like magazine ad from some like old like automobile shop catalog or something like that. It's pretty cool. Okay, now I'm going to add one more thing as like a little bonus to this tutorial that's pretty cool. So I have a cool brush that I can download here. So I'm going to download one more set here, and I'm going to do that by going once again to Presets, Preset Manager, Brushes, and I'm going to click Load. And I've got a really cool brush set here that's great for edges. So I'm going to click this bonus number 1, 7 edge brushes, and I'm going to install that. And as you can see, we've got these edge brushes now. So we're good there. And then I'm going to select these. I love these, and I don't know why more people don't use these kind of things or make these kind of brushes for people, because they can be so useful. Check out what I can do with these edges here. This is pretty neat. So I can do that, and this kind of creates like a, you know how like the edges of things get frayed? This kind of does that. So I can do that, or I could add one in the middle, kind of like a fold. Or I could use this on the edge of the letters. And you can do this with other brushes too. I like these ones, but you can definitely do this with other brushes. You might have to get a little more like in there and more detailed to make it work, but you definitely can. I can go to like the red top layer and check out what I'm doing here to these individual letters. I can start like really going crazy on the edges of the letters. This kind of stuff is so fun, and I'm lucky because I'm selling retro products, so I can go really crazy on how much I do this, but lots of times it's really cool to just do it like really subtle. So I'm going to get the brush tip shape, and I want to get a different edge, so I'm going to angle it by going to brush tip shape and then changing the angle by 90 degrees. And now see, I can get the tops of these letters. Okay, so now we have this totally distressed, cool looking textures that we made, and here's one last little trick that I want to show you that can make this even cooler. Now you lose a little bit of the color as you use the brush because it's kind of fading off the color, but you can bring that back easily by getting this adjustments panel and just going to something like, you could go to levels and just tweak that a little bit. See how by just adjusting these a little bit, I'm able to make it a little darker again, and then I can decide how much darker I want it. Okay, so that is it for the tutorial. I hope you found this useful. Go grab yourself some brushes from somewhere and try this out. It's a blast, and I think that it will give you a lot of new, fresh ideas when you're working on projects. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.